We have a very special guest today. It is our congressman for our district, been a champion on all these issues that we've talked about today, and we've asked him to come and say, how can we continue to work with you to keep these benefits and these programs strong? Congressman John Tierney, everyone.
Look, I mean, this is a fantastic group. Me coming here to talk to you about how you can be helpful to me is sort of redundant because you already are in the forefront on these issues, and you're organized and you're vocal. So you can't ask for much more than that as a group that really educates themselves on the issues and then goes out and educates others. And if you want to have in a nutshell, what you can do is continue to do that, to expand your group. There you go. I think that's the only way we have strength. If you remember back in about 2005 when President Bush had this notion that he wanted to privatize Social Security, and he caught some steam, if you remember right. He was talking about it in a debate. He was out there. He felt he had a mandate. He was ready to move forward on that. And the only thing that stopped him was the public. All right, so we had, Nancy Pelosi was our leader at the time, and she said, we're going to go out, we're going to do town meetings all over our respective districts. And we did about 1,000 of them. I mean, we had multiple ones in this district, and I know other members did it all the way across the country, and the noise got to be so loud that the president had to pull back. And that was the end of his notion on that whole thing. It was a large defeat for him politically, but more importantly, it was a large defeat for a notion that would have put us in one hell of a fix if it had actually passed, and then we had the recession. You can only imagine what would have happened if we had privatized Social Security and everybody's money in equities, and the stock market, having the problems that it had, and the economy having its problems. People are already losing the equity in their homes, losing their savings account, money on that coming down, decreasing, and this would have been the final stick, right? Would have been the final thing that did it and knocked them down. So that was a tremendous victory, and you played a huge part in that. And so that's an exact model of what you can do to try to make sure that we have these benefits and they stay. We're talking now everywhere we go about the middle class. And I think you go all the way back to Aristotle. Aristotle was very clear that he thought that those governments that governed best were effectively a core of the middle class. And he thought that there should be more middle class in government than any of the other classes on that, because that was the way the governments were really true democracies and really moved forward. And you have Brandeis, who said very clearly that you can have either a democracy or you can have a government where all of the money goes to one small group of people, but you can't have both on that. And what keeps the middle class going here is the notion that we try to make sure that we take care of our young. We try to make sure now since the 1930s that when people age, they're taken care of. And it helps the whole family. All right? It allows families to take care of their children, get them to school, allows them to maintain their job in their households, knowing that their parents and other relatives as they get older are going to have a way to sustain themselves. And it's very modest. If you go back to the actual comments that FDR made as he was signing the Social Security law, he very clearly says this is a modest amount of money for people to sustain them as they age on that. And I don't know how many of you out there, I don't know your individual circumstances, but most people in this district of Social Security aren't getting a tremendous amount. It's not a huge check every month. And particularly if you're a survivor and you're getting that portion on that, and maybe you raised a family and hadn't worked a lot of hours when you were going through your life, then it's smaller still. And about 65% of the people in this district have a primary part of their retirement monies from Social Security. And a healthy portion of them have that as the only source of their retirement. So when people start talking about, well, we need to have entitlement reform, and that's how we're going to balance the budget, we ought to push back and tell them it's sheer nonsense. There are a lot of ways of balancing the budget, except for looking at people that need this assistance to keep entire families across generations healthy. Right? We could easily get rid of a lot of loopholes, in the tax code. They're just replete. I found 250 of them when I worked with the Center for American Progress and the Joint Tax Committee, and we looked through, found 250 instances in the tax code where special interest got credits or deductions or special favors, special rates on that. So if you close some of those, you have a lot of money. If you just look at the oil industry, it's over $4 to $6 billion a year for a completely mature, profitable industry. Top 5 companies make over $1 trillion in profits, and we're still giving them tax breaks. And then some people say, well, yeah, but we can't do anything about that. We have to look to Social Security and pare that back. So I say it's nonsense. There are other ways to go about making sure that we're a healthy economy, and that just means we have to have the will. We have a good Social Security system now. It could be strengthened. We could actually make the benefits, a little healthier, and that would be better for everybody on that basis. That's a big fight to make. We have a fight now just to sustain what we have. But if we really wanted to look at it at some point, we say, how do we make it stronger? How do we strengthen Social Security and make sure that people have a little bit more money to survive? I tell all my small business folks, and I was the president of a local chamber of commerce years ago, I tell them, this is customers we're talking about. So every time you complain about somebody getting a benefit, you should think that they're going to take that benefit and spend it in your store. We're not talking about millionaires here. We're talking about people that are in the middle class. It's not like they take money and put it away in the trust fund for the grandchildren. This is money they have to pay for groceries, for clothing. Maybe they buy something for the grandkids on that, but they're still spending it in your store on that basis. So it makes good economic sense, too, to keep that healthy and make sure that we have these programs, just really protected and strengthened. Medicare, we have the fight every year that Paul Ryan puts out his budget. You all know Paul Ryan. It's become a catchword now, right? But Paul fancies himself an intellect because he talks with a serious demeanor. And he is smart. I mean, he's not stupid by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got a philosophical bent that he got mostly from reading Atlas Shrugged. It's all about doing everything for yourself and not worrying about anybody else and never doing things collectively or helping one another out, sort of the book on selfishness on that. He put together a budget, and he sort of repeats it every 2 years when he puts it back out every year. And he said it was informed by his Christian values. But about 90 theologians then wrote to him and told him how they thought his budget was immoral, all right, because of what it did to Social Security and Medicare and things like food stamps and those sort of protections that we have to stop people from going through the floor on that. It's an interesting debate that's going on now. We have people like Paul Ryan in there who don't think there ought to be money for nutrition. So they don't want to give money for nutrition, even though we are managing to keep a lot of people, over almost 5 million people out of poverty every year, just with that, even though it's not enough in many instances, but keeping people out of poverty. They don't want to increase the earned income tax credit, which was a bipartisan notion back when Nixon was in office, and on that, of a way to make people have work pay. If you work, you get a tax credit so that you'll have more money to take home and be able to spend on your family on that basis. They don't want to increase Social Security benefits. In fact, they want to cut those. And they want to cut Medicare, and they don't want to raise the minimum wage. So it's like every notion that would help, strengthen the middle class and keep families secure, they seem to be against, but they don't have any ideas of how they're going to make life and the quality of life better for people. So we have a fight here. We have a struggle. Everything that this certain element in Congress thinks, everything that the government does, they think is an infringement on their personal freedom and personal security, and their right to liberty. And that's an extreme position. If you look historically at how people look at our Constitution, it's, yes, freedom and liberty, but justice and opportunity. Replete through these documents that the founding fathers on that is that, we're all concerned about our liberty and our personal freedoms, but we all understand there are some things that corporations shouldn't, can't, and won't do, and neither will individuals, no matter how rich they are. Public education, Social Security, building national highway systems, Lincoln, building the interstate railways and having the land-grant colleges. If you look back in history, there's always been, even when Republican presidents have been there, the notion that those things need to be done collectively, that won't be done by corporations or individuals, and that's how we get strong as a society and how we move forward. And one of the biggest things we've done that was start treating our seniors with respect and making sure that they had a way to sustain themselves as they got older, and that was the foundations for Medicare and Social Security. On that. So we need to make sure we do it. Paul Ryan's notion of Medicare is to give you a voucher, and you're on your way to go out into the private market and sort of negotiate and haggle with companies. But the problem is, of course, his voucher doesn't increase in value as fast as the cost of the health care increases. So over time, you're losing and losing and losing and falling behind. This is not the way for a good, strong society. And I tell your children and your grandchildren, that just means that they're going to be picking up that bill along with the college bill and all the other household bills on that. So we can be a lot smarter about it. I think that the notion of a change CPI on the Social Security is one we have to really keep our eye on. That also would pare back some of the benefits for people as we get older and go on. And so all of these things are in competition with ways to save money that sort of allow people the license to walk away from what makes the most sense, which would be to reform the tax code, to get rid of the loopholes, to make sure that people that are extraordinarily wealthy and well off pay their fair share and don't take a walk on their responsibilities to this country. And we can do that. You know, the corporations, you know, we used to have a capitalist society where corporations had a notion where they were doing what was best for the shareholder, but also for the customer and also for the employee. We need to get back to that. You know, it can't all be about just trying to drive that stock price through the roof at the expense of the consumer, at the expense of the employee, and the expense of the people as customers that they service. And that means having them pay their fair share of taxes and not walk through those loopholes, to step up and pay people decently when they work for them, and to make sure they treat the customers fairly as well. So what you do day in and day out is right on the money. You organize, you wear your sweatshirts and your t-shirts proudly, because I can only imagine how many people will ask you, what's mass senior action, right? What is it? You get a chance to explain it to them then, and that's spreading the word on that basis. And these are really serious issues. You come together as a group. I think the socialization part of it is probably as much fun as anything, right? You get a good group of people here on that or whatever, and you get a good mission on that. And any time that there's an issue, again, if another president or somebody were to come around and say they want to privatize Social Security, here's a start of a group that's going to get out there and mobilize against that. And we could do the same thing against notions of Paul Ryan and others of how they want to destroy Medicare as it currently is and take it in the wrong direction. We've got a group here that's going to be right out there in the forefront, spreading the word, telling people what ought to be and how important these programs are. Look at what was done in the Affordable Care Act with Medicare when the Republicans were running around trying to tell you that the Affordable Care Act was going to ruin Medicare. You know, they were scared the hell out of everybody on that basis. It extended the life of Medicare between 8 and 10 years, right? Something that everybody was cautious about doing. It gave preventative care for free, no co-pays and no deductions on that, saving people hundreds of dollars a year. Sometimes the co-pay was as high as $160 on some of the tests on that. We're finally getting rid of the so-called donut hole, where you pay up to a certain amount of prescription drugs and all of a sudden the whole bill is yours. Remember historically how that came into being. In 2003, Democrats were out there saying we need to have prescription drugs as part of the health plan for Medicare, and we can do it by negotiating with the prescription drug companies and driving those prices down like we do in the Veterans Administration. The Veterans Administration negotiates with the prescription drug companies and pay about 48% of the premiums out there. So Medicare coming on board is a huge number of customers. You go to Costco, you get a deal for having a lot, you know, for buying in bulk. It's the same theory on this. We've got a lot of customers coming in. The drug company's going to benefit from it. They should give us better prices and rebates on that. The Republican notion instead was to disallow, to forbid the secretary to negotiate for lower prices. And the way they paid for that was they borrowed about $800 billion over 10 years, and they created this notion of a donut hole. So you didn't get all your prescription drugs paid for. You got it up to a certain amount with a contribution, and then you had to pay the whole bill through a period of time before you got back to having a contribution. We're closing that. The Affordable Care Act is closing that already. People are benefiting anywhere between $650 and $710 a year already, and in a couple of years, there'll be no donut hole at all. And we made the prescription drug companies step forward and participate and put money into that. And we should continue to go forward in another bill and tell them you should have to negotiate lower prices for your prescription drugs. It would be better still on that. So, you know, these are all things that we have to do and spread the word. So when somebody tries to get out there and tell other seniors, they'll scare them that, you know, how bad the Affordable Care Act is for seniors, remind them, say, well, what was the bad part for us? We got more primary care physicians. All right, we got better policies out there for hospitals to try and get people out of the hospital sooner, less infections, less chance of getting sick in the hospital. We've got extended life of Medicare. We've got free preventative care without any co-pays or deductibles. We have the donut hole closing. What was the bad part? You know, we are out there working. We put more money into fraud detection in Medicare. This is a big program, and there's fraud in every big program, whether you're a private corporation or whether you're a public entity on that. But over $15 billion in fraud stopped last year. Serious stuff. The lowest rise in healthcare cost ever in Medicare. Right? So the amount of money it costs to provide healthcare in there rose as small as ever risen on that. And we need to do that, not just in Medicare, but in our healthcare bills right across all segments, private and Medicare and Medicaid, in order to have the, you know, this not gobble up too much of our economy every year. And so overall, we had the lowest increase in spending on healthcare, and in Medicare, lower still. So you're the advocates out there, you've got the message, you've got the ability to do it. Who's going to say no to you, right, on that, and go out and do it. So thank you for being so strong on these issues. Thank you for understanding them, first of all, for taking the time to become familiar with them, to know the real facts, and to not let people push misrepresentations and outright misstatements on you, and then going up and knowing enough to fight for what's good for you and for everybody else. Thank you.
Congressman,
Sure.
for coming. My resentment is, as a senior, that Washington, with all due respect to you, sir, and local folk, treat the seniors not as the elders who have contributed for years, but as a fact, as a burden. We paid for Social Security. We contributed to Social Security along with our employers. And their finger pointing should not even be in place. If it was called respect for what we've contributed over the years, it should be a fact that there should be an effort, a driving force to make Social Security that much stronger. Okay, because now you've got your world, I don't know the proper terminology, where other countries are already looking at the US dollar as not having to be the trade for all. And if that happens, it seems like every once in a while, Washington takes a look at the fat pot of Social Security money, money which hard-earned money that I worked for. And now as a retired part-time employee working for a company that contributes into Social Security, I pay into Social Security. I get no benefit for that whatsoever. Okay, that goes into the general fund. That's fine. That's my prerogative to work part-time. But I'm tired of local government, I'm tired of Washington pointing the finger and saying Social Security, the seniors, we have to work at this issue. This is not a working issue. This is our money in your hands up in Washington.
So let me share with you one of my pet peeves, all right, on that, because I understand what you're saying. My only contention with you is you help those people who want to attack those programs when you use as broad terms as Washington, those people like that. That's a win for them. They don't get any blame, all right, because not everybody is there. I would think that some people here recognize how hard I fight for these programs as part of the introduction, right? So when you say Washington in a way that sort of incorporates those of us that are fighting and have been fighting for it, you do them a favor. They avoid blame. Call them by name. Call them by name.
How do we know?
Paul Ryan, you know that name, all right? He's the one that wrote it.
I can't talk to him because he has a vision.
No, but when you talk about them, whether you're being quoted in the press, whether you're being quoted by your friends and neighbors, they would love everybody to think that all of Congress is to blame, or that all of Washington is to blame. Right, but there are people there, all right, who are on your side, and there are people who are not on your side. So don't throw the people who are on your side in the lump with everybody and let the ones who aren't on your side off the hook. You got to call them out by name.
It shouldn't be that difficult, though, because you should have, with all due respect, you have the driving force of the seniors, the contributing seniors behind you across this country. It shouldn't be that difficult.
Except that a majority of them voted for John Boehner's party last time.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so a lot of them were fooled by the Paul Ryans and others who tried to scare them on that. So that's why I say, that's why a group like this is important. You didn't buy it. All right, so you're educated, you've got it figured out, you bother to find the facts, you go out and talk to people about it, but a lot of people don't have this kind of support group, don't have the information available, the Mass Senior Action provides to you, and go out there and easily get duped. So when somebody says to them, oh, you know, Obamacare, all right, misnaming the Affordable Care Act, is going to hurt seniors, it's an absolute fallacy. But they don't know enough to push back. And then when somebody else says, oh, all of them, or those people in Congress or Washington, you let them all off the hook. Because there are some of us, but if we call them by name, then those people would know who to look for the truth and who to get behind so that you did support the majority party who wouldn't do those things. So that's all I'm saying, is you've got the right notion, you've got the facts on that or whatever, just so when we talk, name them. You know, that group, that party, that guy, Paul Ryan, they're the ones that drafted that plan to come after Medicare. We don't like it. There are other people down there who know better, who are on our side, and that's who we want to work with.
All right,
Okay.
there we go. And this is Barbara Cahill from Lynn.
Hey, Barbara.
Yes, Massachusetts had a wonderful health policy in place when the Obamacare came up. 98% of the people in Massachusetts were insured. Now, all of a sudden, a lot of people are losing their insurance, from what I read. Now, I might read wrong,
You
but
do.
they're losing their insurance. Why didn't we get a buy? I mean, Nancy Pelosi's friends got buys on Obamacare. Why can't Massachusetts get a buy? We already had it in place and it was successful.
It's still in place. It's still successful. What you had was the computer system in Massachusetts had to be tweaked a little bit to accommodate some of the changes that the federal law would put in place. Changes like making sure that Medicare lasts another 8 to 10 years, right, which is a good thing for all seniors here. Changes like people are going to get subsidies now up to 400% of the poverty level, not the 300%. So more people will be able to have affordable health care. Changes like people's son or daughter are going to be able to be on their plan till they're 26 if they're not otherwise covered.
We already had that in Massachusetts.
No, you didn't. Not for a whole pile of people. There
Well,
are
for
tens of
people
thousands
I
of
knew,
people.
they all had that.
Well,
Well, my kids had it.
maybe they had it under your policy or whatever, but
No,
it
no,
wasn't.
they had, my sons had it for their kids in college up till 26.
Well, college, yes, you had there's a separate college plan, but this is under every parent's plan. If the kid is in college or not in college, if they're out and they haven't got a job, they're able to be covered until they're 26. You have the situation of your, donut hole closing under the federal law, which wasn't happening under state law. You have the situation, you get preventative care now without co-pays or deductibles, which was not the case under state law. So you go down the line, there are positive things in the federal law that Massachusetts will now be benefited by, but they had a glitch in the transition of that. People are still covered, all right? They're having difficulty going on the computer and getting signed up for it. So what the governor said was during that period of time, they'll get the same policy that they previously had. It'll carry them through until the end of March when they can sign up otherwise. It's a mess. It's a technical glitch. It's not a problem with the policy. It's a problem with the implementation and with the technical aspect of it. But if you had the federal law not apply to Massachusetts, you would lose all of those other benefits, on that basis, and that would be, I think, devastating or at least problematical for people. The federal implementation of the computer thing was a mess. You got a problem here in the state doing it as well. When the Republicans put prescription drugs into Medicare in 2003, you had a bigger mess. You had a huge problem on that, and you had all sorts of problems with the technical and whatever. And at that time, what did Republicans say? We all got to work together. This is a technical glitch. We got to straighten this out. Democrats didn't go in and try to throw a monkey wrench into the system. We thought the bill could have been better. We would have written it differently. But what we did is we went out and worked with seniors to make sure they got the benefit of what was there. We went out and explained the bill. We explained how you sign up for it, how you take advantage of what was there. And then eventually it smoothed out and things went on months later, things got fixed. We wish we had a partner like that, somebody who cared about making sure that seniors got the benefits of this, people in the state got the benefits of it, instead of having 45 votes to repeal a bill, that's going to insure millions of people who didn't otherwise have insurance and give all the benefits that I've talked about for seniors and others. Most people that I talk to say, like, why can't people down there work to resolve it? Every big bill, Social Security included, and Medicare, have issues that need to be corrected from time to time. These are large pieces of legislation. Demographics change, economic situations change, and sometimes they need to be tweaked. Why can't people work together and get that done? And we go back to the main problem. Some people down there don't want to see government step up and do anything for anybody. So they would try to go after Medicare. They would try to go after a health plan for other people. They would try to go after Social Security. And they would love to enlist you to do that by getting you all ranked up about, this problem, which is a problem, but not of the magnitude that have you believe, and get you enlisted on their side to go charging around and say, kill the whole program.
Well, I just know some people who are hurt by it, so.
I do too.
I just-
And they ought to be helped, and there's a way to do that. I mean, there are people that are affected by it. I wouldn't pretend otherwise.
yeah.
But taking everybody else out of it, taking the benefits away from everybody, isn't going to resolve their problem. Their problem is going to be resolved by working with them to get them signed up, to get them the coverage, which will probably be better and less expensive than the coverage they had before.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wondered what you think when there's something you really support, when you get petitions and phone calls asking you to support it. If we know you support it, should we be quiet and not bother you? Or?
I could ask my staff and see what they think. No, I always want to hear from you. So, we're happy to have you contact us. And it does give us some sense of the fervor or the urgency of an issue. If you let us know, we do get amused from time to time when some group will, like set a petition of 300 or 400 signatures in for, to support the John Tierney bill or something like that. The bill, for instance, on handgun safety that I had for technology to personalize gun safety on that. I got a ton of petitions in for people on that telling me to support that bill which we had drawn. And that's always amusing on that. But still, at least let us know that people were supportive and they liked it, even if they hadn't made the connection between who did it and what it was on that. So, we get about 2,000 touches a week, and on some weeks on that, people by email or calling in the office, stopping by or writing us on that, and we try to respond to every one of them within a couple of weeks. And it just gives us a feel of what's going on out there. We're around, we're in Washington either Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday, and we're around the district the other 3 days. But it's 39 cities and towns, and a lot of things to cover or whatever like that. So any way that we can hear from people is always good. And the other way is if you think that we're sharing an opinion or whatever, and you want to say, well, I don't want to write to him because he already does it, write to one of your friends in another state who has a member of Congress that doesn't get it, and urge them to contact that member and educate them.
And
Sure, thank
Congressman,
you.
we'll take one more today. We don't want to take up all your time. We know you have many constituents that want to talk to you. But as an organizer, we don't want anybody to get lazy. So either out here or in Congress. So, and we kind of look at it as also like we're your cheerleaders, Keep going, Congressman, whenever it's a good issue. So we'll put in those petitions. Kiki Chayton from Lynn, as if nobody knows her.
Well, he does. And I'll tell you, you just spoke a little bit on the gun control. I'm very, very concerned on this gun control. We're losing children. What is going on? And I know you're working on it.
Well, what's going on is you have groups like, Gun Owners Action League and National Rifle Association, and those groups that have tremendous lobbying power and a lot of money. All right, so they collect a lot of money from people, and to them, the way that they pay the huge salaries of the people that run those organizations, like $800,000 or $900,000 a year for the people in the NRA and things like that, is to get people trumped up on an issue. So to them, everything has to be an attack on your personal liberty or freedom to own and carry a gun. Well, that case was decided by the Supreme Court. And they said you have a constitutional right to own and carry a gun. But if you continue to read that Heller decision, it also says, but just like not being able to run into a theater that's crowded and scream fire when there isn't one, it has limitations. So there are some limitations on the right to free speech, there are some limitations on the right to own and carry a gun, and there are public health and safety and other considerations like that. And then they went through in that case and cited a whole history from the days of our founding fathers right up through the current day of restrictions that used to be put on ownership and the right to carry for those reasons of public health and safety. But the NRA and others turned that into the slippery slope. So in the front page of the Post today, in fact, there's an article on technology being used. I think the article is about using, we want guns to be like iPad for guns or something like that. Yeah, the current gun is a gun that just came on the market that is a watch, and you have your gun in your hand. As long as the watch is tuned up to that gun, it'll fire, but you separate the two and it won't fire. There are other technologies out there with your palm grip on the panel of the gun, a ring, or things of that nature that separate. You can't use the gun unless you're the authorized user. So I had filed a piece of legislation that said we should take 2 years to let them continue to perfect that and say at the end of 2 years, every gun, a handgun that's manufactured in America has to be technologically created so that only the authorized user can fire it. It would be affordable, all right? If you wanted somebody else in your family to do it, you simply feed their biometrics onto the gun, and it'd be a lot safer. 17% of all the public safety officers that get killed with their own gun. People wresting it away and doing it. A huge number of children that end up committing suicide or accidental deaths have that gun in the home, and it was lawfully in the home. The parent had a right to have it, but the child found it, it wasn't safely secured, and they got killed. These are things having that technology would prevent. And so we're moving that, but in the front page of the paper today, it showed that one manufacturer finally had decided to start manufacturing these guns, and then there was a debate back and forth, and the NRA's position is slippery slope. All right, well, if you let them come in and mandate that you have to have, safety on there, then, next thing you know, they're gonna be taking everybody's gun. Foolish, because the counter argument to that from a different group was, you shouldn't do it because it's gonna encourage people to have guns. So you get on both sides. The fact of the matter is what you're saying is we have guns. Let's look at the public safety and the health issue and make them as safe as we can possibly make it. We put seat belts in cars. All right, when first, nobody wanted airbags and seatbelts in cars. Oh, it was a terrible thing. The airbag was going to blow you out the back of the car, and all these. Really, they had arguments, and it was a long time for it to get accepted. Now, if you went to the store and you had a chance to buy a car with a seatbelt and an airbag and one without, which would you buy? You see? So, this is the same notion, is we got to get these guns manufactured, stop these. Back when President Clinton was in, he gave money and a grant to Smith & Wesson to develop this technology. They got so much heat from the NRA and others, they shelved it. So now we have to get people encouragement to go out and do the right thing, make those available so people can have the choice to get safe, if they want to get safe, and do that. But the problem with it is, obviously, those groups come out and agitate against it on that basis. But we take technology, frightening as it may be for some of us from time to time, and we put it into all of our lives. But why not use it for something like this? Why not use technology to really enhance the public health and safety of people on a real vexing issue that people have had a real difficult time with? Okay.
One quick question. We gotta change these stand your ground rules. I mean, this is unreal. When the little kids are getting killed in Florida and getting away with it, it's unreal.
The stand your ground, is that what you said? Yeah. Well, that's a Florida law, so, it would be hard pressed for us to bang it around from up here or whatever, but we certainly can fight to make sure they don't get nationalized, and taken somewhere else. It is.
Well, you can smoke marijuana and get a gun. That's you need a stoner with a gun.
Watch out for him. Okay.
Would your technology, if that would, God willing, it passes, is that going to be universal as far as, right across the states?
If the handgun bill passes, it would be for the country on that basis.
Back up to that, like a severe fine for foreign sales of guns?
Well, you would, in order to market a gun in this country, you would have to comply with the safety mechanism. The Consumer Product Safety Board, they're out there regulating toy guns, but they have no safety factors for the most deadly weapon that we have, guns on that. They would establish the standard, and then manufacturers would only be able to produce and manufacture and sell wherever they were from in this country a gun that was technologically fitted so that it just take the authorized user. A violation of that would mean that they'd lose their immunity. Right now, believe it or not, gun manufacturers have immunity. If they have a gun and the gun malfunctions or kills somebody or whatever, they can't be sued, they're not liable at all. So what my legislation says is, well, you will be if you fail to make a gun with those safety features, and as a result, somebody gets injured or killed, they can sue you. You watch how fast they start making them the right way on that when the money's involved on that. Okay. Yes?
Do you think that they'll be able to get rid of the stand your ground law? I know they're working on it. A lot of people are pushing to get rid of it.
Well, as I said earlier, that's a state law right now, and a lot of states are debating that. I think we have to fight to make sure it doesn't become a national law. We certainly don't want that to happen, and we can support those in the state to state that are trying to defeat it in those states and make the law better by far. Well, thank you, everybody. It's always good to see you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks.